Nobody keeps their not guests, but keeps their audience waiting like us. What
do they call that? A tease?
Yeah, we leave them sitting there for 30 minutes because it's funny. The longer we wait, the more people jump on like immediately. But it's not on purpose. You know what I mean? It's just we're shooting the shit. Either shooting the shit or late. I'm late. It's fun. But so college football and we were. I'll let you kind of talk about the first thing that we saw, but there's a bunch of stuff going on, and I kind of titled it "The State of College Football," meaning there's so much going on in college football that's like blowing up the whole process. Let's put it like that. And it's really interesting because coaches are, for the most part, proceeding as if the world isn't imploding around them, right. Offering guys and so on and so forth, because that's all they can do. And Literally. Then meanwhile, there's all kinds of like wild things going on. So I'll let you first talk about the Deion thing, but there's a couple other things that I saw that were really wild too. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, like you said, I think college football right now is in a state of obviously transition isn't really like the word that to describe it. I think it's just it's so much new ground that's happening so fast that I don't think guys can catch up. I don't think guys are willing to, some guys are not willing. They kind of want to stay the old way, but they're starting to realize, like, if I don't start to do it this new way and with all these kind of changes and things like that, like, I'm literally going to be left by the wayside. And the NCAA, they're not doing it. They're not going to do anything about it, right? This just is the way it is. It's the Wild West right now. The first thing, like I said, I saw yesterday, I guess Colorado self-reported just like a minor an NCAA violation because Deion mentioned a specific recruit in one of his social media things of that nature. So it's just kind of little things like that. Like you're going to punish guys for, openly saying some name of a recruit, in public. Yet we all know the things that are, being done behind closed doors. And like I just think it's a wild time right now in college football, and I don't know how fast things can get corrected or get back on track, if that makes sense. And if it doesn't, you're going to see a tremendous effect trickle down to the lower levels, which you're already starting to see a little bit of it. But I mean, it will not be long before all of these other levels, things just happen, and it's going to happen trickling down because everything starts with, your major programs and your major conferences, in the Power Four, and then kind of just goes from there. So it's a weird time, man. It's a weird time, and it's crazy.
Yeah, well, you're going to get much more of the Wild West and in the trickle down. So if it doesn't happen in the high schools, meaning if you don't have like New Jersey allows you to do all this transferring and Florida does, but some states don't, right?
100%.
So if some states don't do that, they're just going to do it within the clubs that they belong to, or so right. It doesn't really. There's no controlling that aspect of it, and then as soon as someone sues for anything, any association is just going to back off on it. So because they're not going to have the money to. How are you going to have the money if someone is willing
to hire a lawyer and go fight you? Like that's just not going to happen.
Right. And now in the past, it was really like you're screwing my kid's scholarship opportunity. Now
doesn't matter.
If this kid's a 5-star or 4-star, you could say you're screwing my kid's financial opportunity, right?
Like, and that is a big difference when it comes to the courts.
Huge difference because this is a civil court case in most cases anyway, right? So, so that would be a huge deal. That would be a gigantic case. Well, actually, you would have both. You'd have a civil court case and then a law-based case, right? So you'd have both, which would be an issue. So it's pretty crazy. The other thing I saw that came, so yeah, those tidbit little things coming down on Deion, like that's I mean, it's so funny because that's like nothing compared to what's going on out there, right? It's just let's do something to do something because we have to do something. But it's crazy. So you get like what the Wisconsin player, right? Who you know this story, right? Xavier Lucas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll read it to you, and this is what.
Well, you know where he's from, right?
Originally, no.
Xavier Lewis. So that's the kid that was trying to get in the portal but wasn't allowed to get in the portal, right?
Yeah.
He couldn't leave and all that kind of the safety, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an American Heritage kid.
Oh, he is. Okay. Oh, that'd be great to have Coach on to talk about that.
Coach Smith's been dealing with this for weeks.
So I'll read this to you, and maybe you have some insight you could share. So you're exactly right. He's defensive back. Wisconsin wanted to transfer, wanted to enter the portal. They said no because he had an NIL deal with them that had big financial compensation.
Yep.
So instead of him entering the portal, he said, great, I'll unenroll from Wisconsin and then enroll in Miami, which is exactly what he did. So he's not quote unquote transferring. What he is doing is he's unenrolling from the school. So what basically has happened because of this, this has rendered the transfer portal highly irrelevant. So if I don't like, so forget about, he transferred to, you can't transfer more than whatever times or whatever this nonsense is. No, all the person has to do, they can transfer 50 times if they want to. All they have to do is unenroll from the school. Right. And then if someone wants to chase them for financial compensation from a contract, they can chase them through the legal system because that's how it's going to happen. So there's no such thing, and good luck with that one because that'll take years and years and years, and probably be a detriment to your school in the sense that people are like, so now Wisconsin's going to sue kids. You know what I mean? So the all these things happen that are ramifications from the whole entire. But to me, the craziest part of all of it was the fact that until he did this, no one realized that all you have to do is just unenroll from the school and then enroll the next semester at another school, and you are immediately eligible. I mean,
does that have anything to do with, because that's all school based, right, and academic wise, right? And does that have anything to do with like the releasing of that guy as an actual player? Right. Like he's still, so once you unenroll from a school, you're automatically like off a team, unenrolled, right? Like no longer affiliated whatsoever. They don't now have to sign a release, allow you to go play football or do any of those things. Like that just all gets erased.
The school. So I'll give another example that's not as prominent. That's
mind boggling to me that people had not figured out that quote loophole to make this all work until now?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll give you an example of why I think this does happen because they keep it hush hush, right? So, for example, when I was in college, I played 5 years. I had a red shirt, and I could have gotten. I had a year I was out with an injury that I could, but they did not. They would basically what they said. I don't know if you would be able to get it. I don't know if you would qualify. So I didn't even bother.
Right,
I didn't bother pursuing it. They discourage you.
100%. Right? They make it like, dude, it's not even worth it. You're never going to get it. So you're like, okay, I guess so.
Yeah, they said we could try it. Blah blah blah. Right, but if they have a recruit they're looking at, right, and you're in your 5th year and you played already,
I need that spot.
So right, I want that spot maybe. Right, so. So I didn't even really pursue it because the people I talked to were low level. The person I should have talked to was the head coach. He probably would have told me to pursue it. Okay. And so because he would have wanted it back because I was a starter the year before. Right. But you never know. Right. So they discourage you from that. So you don't pursue it. And they have a good way of doing that. They're really good at that. And so this person obviously was smart enough to realize maybe this is not, you don't want to do it. Let me see what other avenues there are. And he figured it out. And another good example is Sacramento State, right, who had raised a bunch of money, even though they're FCS, they want to go FBS. And you probably have read some stuff on that. they signed a guy who used to be a running back for Alabama. He actually played a lot as a freshman. Some things happened or whatever. I can't remember exactly, but they signed him. I'm looking for his name. Sacramento State. Let me look it up. I'll tell you the exact story here. So, Sacramento State, Alabama running back. Okay, so
and now they were FCS trying to go FBS, correct?
They're FCS trying to go FBS, and I can't find it. But anyway, so he's a former 5-star, and he was. Oh, I'm sorry, he was a receiver. So he was a receiver at Alabama who played a ton. A guy Hall, I think is his name. So he decided he was out for 2 years of football completely. He was at Alabama. I think he went to another place. I can't remember where for a year, and then something happened. Was out of football for 2 years. Okay, he was a former 5-star. Now he signed a deal with Sacramento State, and he's getting paid money. And he didn't have to go to transfer portal. He just enrolled in Sacramento State. So that's an example. But usually you don't know that, because most of the people that it happens to are these kind of situations. Kids who were out of football, gone completely, like not really.
And then they literally get forgotten about and then pop up again.
That's exactly right. So they get forgotten about and they pop up again. So no one really realizes that. But that's a really, so basically if you can enter the transfer portal, but if you're getting messed with, you don't have to. You can just unenroll. Now there is a little bit of risk in the sense that if you unenroll, there's no school for you to go back to or anything like that, right?
But would you want to even go back to that school anyway? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm not playing football and they're not doing their due diligence to me in those terms, well, then I sure as hell don't want to stay here on campus and be around it and whatever. I'm out.
Right. Well, and I think that's
and it's not like they're going to pay for school anyway anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm thinking, like, I don't know, if you're a Division III player and you think you can move up and then you unenroll and then you have nowhere to go.
Well, I think that's a little different, and I think that's when we talk to Coach from Rowan, his policy in terms of like, look, if you can go up, go bigger, get some money, I'm here to support you, all good. But look, if you don't get that and now you think you can just come back here, like, here's the firm hard date that you got to let me know by. And if not, then sorry, there's not a spot for you. Right. I think that's kind of a, and like the head coach, like the Arizona State guy, he did the same type of thing with his kids, which is a different way to kind of do it.
Totally different than Mora, who basically let them take their time. Totally different.
I also think by doing
different situations,
doing that right away, right, as that player right away, you got to look and say, okay, maybe this guy isn't as big of an asshole as I thought.
Right.
Even if he is, at least he's going to say to you, look, I'm sorry you feel that way. You're still one of us. We want you to be a part of us. If you feel it's necessary for you to go somewhere else, absolutely, I'll help you. But if not, you'll always have a place here. That way, hey, maybe he doesn't get what he was really looking for, and he doesn't like just kind of leave and go and do nothing, right? So at least he's coming back to you. You're still going to have that guy. Now, again, you could flip that thing and say, all right, look, he wants to go. I already have another guy in place. See you later, buddy. And whether he gets something or he doesn't, that's another way to do it, right? I just think a lot of coaches, that pride thing comes into it, right? And I think that starts to play a role a little bit. Like, well, why isn't he happy here? And it's like, well, maybe he wasn't a guy that you recruited, right? Maybe the turnover in the schools, we see it a lot now. Coaches are in, they're out. I didn't recruit this guy, right? Like, he's not my guy. So you know what? Maybe that is the best move for you. And that's an easy way to cut ties and say, kind of go. But I've always been a firm believer, even before this stuff happened. If you're at a school or you were recruited by a coaching staff, and all of a sudden you're in there for 2 years, and they all get fired, and they bring in a new guy who brings in a new system or just anything in general, like, you're not his guy. I always felt like you should have been granted a 1-year free transfer I can get out of here and be okay. Because that was really difficult when this wasn't a thing, right? You had to sit a year, you had to do all those kind of things just to play, and is that your fault the coach got fired or the coach left to go to someplace else? Like, no, I think that's why there was so much blowback on coaches when all of the, for coaches saying about the NIL and the transfer and the money and all that, like, well, you guys have been recruiting kids, telling them, come here to this place. And then 2 years after they get there, you're out and going to the next job with more money. And that kid's now stuck there. Right. So I think that played a big role. But it's freaking wild. I mean, Nick Saban was just on the Pivot podcast and it was excellent.
I saw it. Yeah.
And the whole thing, he talked about like, hey, it is just like the whole thing about college football was development and education and all that kind of stuff. And guys really kind of looked for that. And now it's all, how much you going to pay me? And I think that's really what kind of burned him up, and kind of was like, you know what? I don't know if this is right for me.
Well, that's what it 100% is. And it's completely that. And if you looked at, like, what's the going rate for like a quarterback? It's over $1 million at Division I.
Yeah,
for a top quarterback. At Auburn's bringing in Jackson Arnold, who was from Oklahoma, I think. It was more of like a runner, and supposedly he's getting $2.5 million from
well, everybody's
Auburn.
just going to try and reset the market. But remember, like you said, okay, like when free agency happens in the NFL, you're talking to certified agents that have certified numbers that are, this is what it is. And if not, you can go look it up. Right.
Right.
College, none of that. Guys could be throwing out numbers that are smoke and mirrors to just drive up that price. Now, look, you can say, okay, in the general vicinity, or, hey, we've heard that this is what this quarterback is going to make at this level, or this is what a wide receiver makes at this level, or any position, right? Like, you can do all the hearsay stuff, but what really is that number, right? And I think that's what it comes down to, is the open transparency that needs to be somewhat policed and, kind of certified that this is really the number of what it is.
Yeah, and there's no certification.
I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, and obviously, if it's a private university, they don't even have to share that number.
Miami, I guess they don't have to share any of their numbers. Private university, right? Notre Dame, private university, they don't have to share that stuff.
And so then the other thing that's really interesting is the money. So the TV money's coming in, and everybody's going to get, like, depending on your I guess your league, you're going to get a certain amount of money, revenue share. So only one I could, use for as an example that I know for sure, like UConn's getting $22 million, right? So
from a TV deal?
I guess it's from rev share that goes to the players. Well, so the issue was Joe Biden had signed a executive order saying that has to be held with Title IX, right? Meaning that has to be split evenly. Okay. Which does not work. That does not work. Like, so the rower who brings in no revenue to the university, okay, probably costs the university money. And this is nothing against rowers, okay, because they're good athletes in their own right. But they're not bringing in football, men's basketball, and in some places women's basketball. It's probably the big three, right?
Right.
Yeah. 1, 2, in that order, by the way. My guess in most places, women's basketball does not bring in money. So it's probably, I would say there's probably about 30 or 40 universities.
I wouldn't say that it brings in any money, but
yeah,
I mean, maybe UConn women.
Yeah, I would say maybe like 20 schools around the country probably. Like Rutgers probably does.
Right.
UConn probably does, Baylor, LSU.
Right, like your big name teams, dude. And then I'm sure the tournament might give you a little bit.
Yeah, tournament gives you money. Yeah. So it's, but obviously men's basketball is much more. So it's football by far, then men's basketball, then women's basketball, right? And then probably after that, you'd probably go to like men's baseball, and they probably don't make much money other than like 3 or 4 teams. Okay, so if now you're sharing this money, this is what it's 100% going to get overturned by Trump. Okay, he's going to 100% change that. But as of now, you probably have to figure out, okay, how am I going to split this money? And then there's supposedly state laws. So
correct.
Connecticut, I'll use Connecticut as an example, or New Jersey, they're gonna hold to these Title IX DEI standards where like they're gonna try and split it evenly. But if you go to Alabama, they're not gonna do that. They're gonna split it according to who's making the most money for the university, and so you're gonna have that across the country, which is that's a problem. Like, so that affects recruiting, and in any of the big football school states, like really big football school states,
Texas, even California, Florida,
Michigan, Ohio, even those Midwest states, even, right? Which Michigan probably still has like all this DI nonsense going on, but they're not going to mess with football though. So they're not going to mess with. They're not stupid. You know what I mean? So
yes, 100%. Like they're not going to screw with that because it's too good of a whatever.
Yeah, no, they're not screwing the pooch on Michigan football, and probably not Michigan State football either, right? So,
right, like that's just not happening.
Right. So what you're going to have is, and then I'm sure private universities probably could do whatever they want, right? Like, so like, they're not even probably subject to those same state laws because they're not getting state money, right? Per se.
Correct.
So that's a whole crazy animal. And then what I know from like with UConn, so they try to get some of the collectives that were nonprofit to no longer operate, which I don't think, that's not going to happen with Ohio State, and that's not going to happen with, but they, so they told these guys to no longer operate because the money's going to come in house. But the bottom line is you're going to need outside money because always you're going to always need outside money because, and I'll use, because I don't know every other school as much, but like UConn happens to have a great women's basketball player that makes over $1 million a year. Ain't no way that revenue share is going to be enough for her. She makes $1 million plus a year. She's like a little TikTok star.
She makes more. Like you're never even going to come close to that.
Yeah, she might make more than $1 million a year, to be honest. So, and then if you go to like the quarterback for Alabama, the quarterback for Georgia, the quarterback for Michigan, Ohio State, like they're going to make $5-10 million a year. Easy. You're not going to be able to, that distribution be in-house only. So it's crazy how that part is. The NCAA has zero control over that, zero enforcement. The government has some level, and and the good thing is it's an all you got all Republican Supreme Court, House, right. Senate, obviously Trump. So he's not going to make it so it's unfair to the people for the money that comes in house, but then it's going to be scaled. And if you're a rower or a track and field athlete or I don't know, whatever, and you don't bring in money, and all of a sudden you're getting money above your scholarship. That's a home run, dude. I mean, like you weren't getting anything before. So even if it's $5,000, it's great. So I mean, could you imagine if you had money like in college? Like, that would have been great, right? I mean,
remember, $500 in college, you were like rich. That could last you a week. Like you could make that work, and you could be like, I got money in my pocket. Like these guys now come in asking for God knows what it is. I mean, I would love to hear a Power 4 coaches now like conversation with whether it's current players on the roster or whether it's even incoming, and you could separate it into either, right? Current players or incoming recruits. Like, what's the first, like, where does that come in the pecking order of questions asked? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, am I going to play right away? Or, you know what I mean? Like, what is the order of importance to these kids now? Right? Because look, the way we view things, and I literally had this conversation with our head coach today, like the things that we view are important to a program, whether it be culture-based, XOs, anything really, right, are very, very different than what your team looks at, right? Unless you have an established culture where you're all on the same page, correct?
Correct.
So I think the best way to go about that is literally you ask the kids.
Yes, agreed.
Give me the level. Like, I want you to list 3 things, right? What are 3 things you would change about this place? Or 3 things, anything to do with our team in general, whether it be, look, would you rather get a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, right? Or would you rather practice in the morning or practice in the afternoon, right? Like, I don't care what it is. Everything's open on the table. And then obviously you scale it to what you are trying to do, just to kind of gauge, 1, level of importance to things to your players. 2, right? You kind of get a feel of what are they in this for? Are they talking about uniforms? Or are they talking about how we warm up? Are we talking about play calls? Are we talking about what defense we run? Right? Are we talking about maybe I don't think we should be, front squat, and I think we should be back squat. What is on their radar? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's
important.
That's kind of important in nowadays.
I think you got to know
society where every one of them has been treated kind of in that individual manner where it's like, hey, what you think or what you matters. Like, you actually have a say in this, right? Like, they need to be, that's kind of how they've been raised, right? Like, we didn't have many choices as kids, dude. Like, here's what's on the table for dinner. This is what you're eating. If you don't want it, don't fucking eat. Like, now, okay, well, we have a vegan option here for you, buddy. And we got a fruit smoothie over here, I just think that you need to involve your players as much as possible in the process to make them feel like they are a part of the process.
I think it's one step even further, okay? And this may make you cringe. I think you have to have a meeting with the parents.
100%.
Now you always have your meeting at the beginning. I'm sure your coach does, right?
No, you need to have more of a.
I think you need to have a meeting and get to know what they think are a priority for the program and give them an
100%.
opportunity, even though it's a group setting, give them an opportunity to articulate what they think should be a priority in the program.
Absolutely.
Like, hey, what do you think should be a priority? I'm not saying it's going to happen. I want to know. We want to know, because if there's good ideas, which there may be, there are good ideas. If we think there are good ideas that can help the program, we will take it. Because I think that now, for example, you guys are building, right? So these are not yet quote unquote issues yet, right? But as you get better, it's funny because it's not when you're bad it's the issues, really, and you're building. Not bad. I mean, you guys are middle of the road, right? But once you get good, then that's when people lift their head up and go, "Can I go to college and play?" Right?
I think that's and that's also something I feel like. Look, and I don't think it has anything to do with specifically how I am. You can generalize this saying just any place you go to where you're building, right? Like, this is for everybody.
Anyone's building.
And look, doesn't have to be high school. It could be your middle school.
Anyone trying to build.
It could be your basketball program, your baseball team. I think a lot of this, the open communication, right? Because look, I'm not a genius. I've never had an original idea in my life, right? Everything I got comes from looking at things in other places and have they worked. So you know what? I think that just in itself, one, shows your community that, hey, this is democratic, right? Even if it's kind of not, right? I will take everything you get or give me, and then it's going to go through a strainer, and if it works for this. But I also think, more importantly, you kind of gauge the knowledge of the people that these guys are going home to and hearing from every single night, right? So if you're wondering why that kid thinks this way, well, that's exactly why. That mom thinks that we should be doing this. And that's what she's focused on. Or maybe some of them just literally don't understand football in general, or don't understand team sports in general. And especially football, that works a little bit different because it's the ultimate team game, right, Dave? We kind of assume, or, right, maybe they come from a different, like, cultural setting where these aren't things. So
right,
just
that gives you a chance as the coach to hey, someone gives you an idea that just makes no sense, or we should do this, and like, all right, we'll consider it, and
Right.
but or I don't think that's something that would be applicable to our program.
And then like hey, like that might work in youth soccer, but that doesn't work with football because of that, right? And then you're actually because we're in a wise society, right, dude? Like when a teacher told you something, you took it as fact back in the day. And you're like, okay, I guess that's what it is. Now these kids have it Googled before you even get the question out of your mouth.
If I ever became a head coach again in high school, this would be I would restructure everything I do as far as how I approach parents and administrators in general. And I did that in interviews, which as well, just I've kind of already changed that if I do interview, because I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to go in, behind the 8 ball. But to me, it's like, hey,
because you'd already be starting from behind. Like,
yeah, of course. Well, what I like in the old days, I wanted to get the job. I didn't want to get the job, right? Now the thought process is, hey, here's how I would go about it. Here's how I would have my relationships with the parents, and here's what I would parents and athletes, and here's what I would communicate to them. And the biggest thing I would always say to administrators is, hey, man, I'm going to coach them hard, okay? And I'm going to love them up too, obviously. But I'm going to coach them hard. Like, I'm going to coach them hard. And occasionally, guess what? I'm going to yell occasionally. Okay? Like, I want you to understand that if
this
may
isn't
happen.
A place where my tone can't go up, then this isn't the right fit. And you know what? That just cuts off the head, of the state before it even starts, Dave. Because then you're not putting yourself through that craziness of we didn't know it was going to be like this. No, dude, here you go. Here's how it's going to be. And
I may get upset.
I don't know if it's I don't know if it's whatever, but that's always how I've kind of approached it. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm like, this is who I am. This is how it's going to be. And, kind of just like an open book type of policy. Like, here's everything that it is. And I'll tell you right now, like, I'm going to be all up in it. I'm over the top. I'm going to be beyond what you like, you're painting that picture for these. It's just really hard now that
guys that go into a job. The thing is, hey, they're going to get better.
They're not.
Well, the thing that you say to them is, hey, listen, I'm going to coach them hard. I'm going to love them up. They're going to get better. They're going to the players that are going to want to be a part of this program, which is going to be the overwhelming. Everyone's going to want to be a part of this program because they're going to know they're going to have the opportunity to get better. Okay, and I'm gonna listen to if parents have a good idea, but I'm also gonna be firm with them as to what's not going to happen, what is going to happen, right? And
it's not going to be rules; they're going to be standards, right?
Exactly.
Like it's and I think it's
not a babysitting service.
We've talked about for years, right? We've talked about that for years. These guys that come in, they're like, rule number 1. Like, you gotta do this.
No, you don't need rules, but you need standards, and it's important to let administrators know that I'm not running a babysitting service. If you need me to run a babysitting service, then there are plenty of coaches you can hire for babysitting service, and there are plenty of guys that are willing to do that, and those are different coaches. Okay, and there are coaches. I'm not saying they're good or bad, but there are guys that would like to do that. And I think in this era, when you have
everybody wants to be a head coach.
Yeah, yes. If you have standards, you have a better opportunity to succeed. But it doesn't. The other thing is that you have to know is if there's ever a change of administration, you which I never realized until it started to happen to me.
That you might not be the guy for them.
You're just better off getting the hell out, to be honest. I mean, that like unless that change administration is someone right, and that's part of your someone is moved up that but if it's someone from the outside and they don't know you, and you're just better off leaving because
it just doesn't. It's not going to line up. It's going to be a headache for both people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sorry.
They're going to have a vision that's different than your vision. And it's the same thing with players in college. And that's the thing that you cannot, It's the same thing. And the problem in college, when you come back to it and how it's all trickled down, is because, look, you could argue that coaches' mobility is the reason why that we have a transfer portal in NIL, because the coaches have been so mobile and have been so uncaring as to when they go into the next place as to who those players were that were there, who were stuck under this new administration, quote unquote, right? They were stuck there instead of just being released. And that's why you do have all these things, because coaches have hopped around and basically made those people feel
basically done it to themselves.
They've done it to themselves with there's a certain aspect of it.
This is the part that I love, right? And you're seeing more of it now because guys are transitioning, right? When you see a coach leave from an FCS and gets an FBS job, now with the portal and everything like that, if he wants to take 25 guys on his roster from that FCS, awesome. Come right with me, bro. How great would you feel? Just like if you're that assistant coach that, hey, we just got an FBS job. Let's go. You're coming with me, right?
That's what
Think about those 25 kids. Look, you recruited these kids. You sat in their living rooms, right? And look, commit to a school. Don't commit to a coach. Commit to the academics. Don't commit to the coach because he could leave or whatever. Man, I'll tell you what, like, education was important. But if my head coach told me, hey, buddy, we're going to the next level, and I think you're a guy that I can take with me and I want to lay the foundation with this, see ya, coach. What time are we?
Indiana coach did. That's what the Indiana coach did,
right? And look at that success, man. Look at a lot of these
13 players from JMU he took.
Look, I get it, right? Like, you recruited a guy at the level that you were at because you thought he could be a high level player. Okay, you take that guy maybe from let's give an example. Assumption, right? Division II. Guy goes from Assumption to Holy Cross, right? Takes a couple players with him. You're telling me that those best players at Assumption can't go to Holy Cross and function be a high-level player? You take your top 10 guys and you bump a level, guarantee you surround those guys with other talent, they're going to rise to the occasion and they're going to be some players for you. Not to mention that they're going to have that X factor of always that chip on the shoulder of, I should have been a scholarship guy and wasn't a scholarship guy, or I should have been an FCS guy and I was this. And then add on top of it, this coach is willing to literally bring me with him. Dude, what you tell me what's going to stop that kid other than a blown ACL?
I think you bring up some really good points. I think the other point that's really, really good is that you're not choosing a university. This is different than what our advice used to be for many years. Now, let's put an exception to it. If you're choosing a high academic school like Duke,
very different, people, separated.
I don't give a shit who the coach is, like, unless he really is a complete asshole to you.
Yeah, and even then, I might suck it up and be like, whatever, because I know I'm getting a degree from Penn.
Exactly. Like, fuck it, I'll just go.
And look, I will die on that sword, Dave, until the day it is what it is. I will die on that sword, dude, because you know what? At the end of the day, football comes to an end, brother. Like, it all does. And that, if you have that degree from one of those Ivy Leagues, you're just in a different world.
Now, if you go to a state university, okay, since both of us went to state colleges, you go to a state university and your coach leaves and he likes you and he goes to a higher level, and you go to another state university, like, I don't think it fucking matters. Like, you graduate from UConn, or you graduate from Rutgers, or you graduate from Penn State, or you graduate from Indiana, or you graduate from Wisconsin. I know that some of them are better than other, a little bit better than
baby. I don't mean to break. I don't mean to interrupt here, but breaking news: the Raiders are hiring
John Gruden. Pete Carroll?
Welcome back, Pete. You're out of your mind. You're 70-something years old. What are you doing?
I thought you were going to say John Gruden.
No, he's good with Barstool, buddy. I think he likes hanging out at Barstool. I mean, he doesn't, but it's okay. Dude, Pete Carroll. And the Jaguars are hiring the OC from the Bucks after they just gave him a brand new contract to be the highest paid coordinator in the NFL. And obviously the Jaguar job was more appealing. So anyway,
interesting.
Pete got out of college, guys, because he did all this stuff way before it was legal. Just so everybody knows.
Did you see that Reggie Bush wants to be the head coach of USC?
Look, Reg, you were a hell of a player. Like a hell of a player. And I'm really glad you got your Heisman back. And I respect the piss out of you, buddy. But, dude, this new trend of players to head coaches. I'm sorry, guys. And I'm going to, again, I will die on this sword as well. Dying on a lot of swords today, Coach.
Yeah.
There are things to learn about being a coach.
Yes.
You cannot just, okay, I'm going to be a coach. Dude, you could be a Heisman Trophy winner. That don't mean you can coach, dude.
That's correct.
I'm sorry. There is also going to always be a level of, I don't know, maybe not disrespect's not the word, but you, in my eyes, will not be respected by your peers as much if all of a sudden you just get a job because you were a Heisman Trophy winner.
Well, yeah, you still have to put together a staff of guys that can coach. And
you tell me how many of those guys are not going to be yes men because you're fucking Reggie Bush.
I think that listen, and it's still, we'll see. I hope Deion stays at Colorado because I would like to see how well he does when he no longer has. Yeah, if he goes and does the job without his sons there and Travis, who is obviously close to them, then I'll be like, heck yeah. And I think he has a much better chance of succeeding like that than all these other celebrity guys because he did coach. He was a youth football coach, a high school coach, then Jackson State, then he has coached all the way. Some of these guys that are getting into coaching literally haven't even coached like youth football.
Look, Michael Vick, I know you were like, all right, dude. Deshaun Jackson, all right. Look, I even look at like Eddie George got an interview with the Bears, right? Like, at least he's.
Well, at least he was at
Trent Dilfer, UAB. But look, what happened? And what happened with Antonio Pierce? Not so much. Gerard Mayo.
Trent Dilfer's a quarterback.
That's another
difference. He was coaching in high school. Remember, Trent was the high school coach.
Right. And look, Antonio Pierce, Long Beach Poly, Arizona State, okay? Like, he put his time in. Those guys were assistants at some point. I'm talking guys that literally just like, you're the head coach. And not you're the head coach of a high school. That's like, okay, right? Like, I'm sure they can develop guys, and a lot of those guys on staff, I'm sure that they bring in are guys that know what's going on. But these, like, I think this is, and I might be wrong, in my opinion, this is strictly due to transfer portal and NIL.
Of course,
right?
I agree.
Because now you're relying more on the flash of something rather than recruit and develop, which they haven't proven, so why would you make him the head coach, right?
I mean, like, Trent Dilfer was 3-9 this year at UAB.
You're also talking a guy that pretty much ran the Elite 11.
His high school team would win every game. The team he was coaching at, they would win every game.
I think Jason Witten is another one.
He was at a private school, and they got all the players. Now he's got to recruit at UAB, which is a totally different environment.
And he's got no money to do it.
How's he going to
compete with anybody else in the state when it comes to money? Everything now comes down to money.
So, yeah, I mean.
Which I think is why those guys are getting hired, because
they think
they can bring these flashy donors to, you know what I mean? Or, oh, my God, I grew up watching Deshaun Jackson catch touchdowns. Or I grew up, my dad said Michael Vick was the best player ever. Okay. Like, he's been you couldn't stop him in Madden 2004. Like, yeah, okay. Like, you're just seeing a lot of it. I think I saw a statistic yesterday, Dave, that there are 6 current NFL head coaches, whether they just got hired or not, that are currently the head coach of a team they played for. Can you name them?
No, wait. So say that question again. Let me see if I can name it.
There are 6 head coaches right now in the NFL.
Okay.
They might have gotten hired in this cycle that are currently coaching the team they played for, or at least one of the teams they played for.
Well, I'm guessing Dan Campbell's one of them.
One of them.
All right, let me go through this here. These are head coaches.
Head coaches. Little Friday trivia here, buddy.
Does Mayo count? Even though
no.
Okay, it does not count. Okay. Let's see. I don't know. I think Andy Reid played in the pros.
Nope.
No, it wouldn't be Andy Reid. All right, let me say. Oh God. Chicago, no.
Listen, I'll give you this.
Hold on, give me a second. Let me think. Jim Harbaugh?
1. That's 2 now. So you got Campbell and Harbaugh. Harbaugh played for the Chargers.
Let me go through this now. The Texans coach?
Yes, sir. Ryans, D'Amico. He played for the Texans.
Okay, I'm almost there.
Okay.
I'm almost there. Shit. Let me think. Who was it? Giants? No.
The last 2 are
Jets. Yes, the Jets coach, Aaron Glenn. That's
Glenn.
4.
Aaron Glenn is another one, and you have one more. Same division.
4 or 5.
Then you have 4. You got one more. 5.
One more. Same
teams in the same division
as the Jets. Okay, which is
probably the easiest one, to be honest.
Oh, AFC East. Okay, so that would be New England, not the Jets, not the Bills, not the. Who else is in there? Shoot, the East. I'm trying to think of who's in
the Dolphins, the Jets, the Bills, and the Patriots.
Dolphins, the Jets, the Bills. That's in the
AFC East.
Oh, Bills.
Vrabel's the Patriots
coach. Vrabel, because Vrabel's a new coach. I forgot. Yeah. I forgot the Vrabel's a new coach.
So listen, like 2 of them are in this cycle, but it's pretty.
Vrabel got hired. You forgot that Vrabel got hired. I would have gotten that.
And you're talking 3 defensive guys, 2 offensive guys. Only one's a quarterback.
Well, those guys all came up through the ranks, though.
100%, dude. They put in their time. They put in the work. They learned. Jim Harbaugh was the head coach at San Diego.
University of San Diego. Yep. He used to help his father when he at Western Kentucky when he was still playing. You know, so.
But to come full circle with it, like just because you're a good pro or a good player doesn't mean you can be a really good coach. We say it all the time, or at least, you know what I mean? The football field is an extension of the classroom. If you can't teach, if you can't relate, if you can't, especially now, have conversations and talk to kids and develop, right? Like you have to wear so many hats as a head coach. And if you're weak in one area, then you better have a damn good assistant that knows what the hell is going on. You know what I mean? Like, I think when you're putting together staffs, and that stuff's so super important, that every one of these guys, one has their own little niche about them that makes them good, but they're also capable of doing a lot of other things. And the more things that they can do, the better, you know?
I agree. I
mean, you want a guy that's good with strength and conditioning, right? More, maybe even more so, break it down even more. I want a guy that's good in the weight room. I want a guy that's good with agility stuff. That way those guys can handle those types of things. You oversee it, right? And then you can kind of pick and choose as you go. I just think the more your assistants can do and are really good at, like, the just better your staff is going to be. You can't be a one-trick pony.
Right.
And look, you've been a part of like you've inherited staffs, you've put together staffs, you've had the, okay, well, this is what we're working with. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, and look, ultimately you have to have those conversations. Hey buddy, sorry, this ain't working.
That's exactly right. No, it's I'm curious the celebrity coach thing and how that will work. Like even in basketball, where that's been much more of a thing, it hasn't worked that great in most cases. So, I mean,
Who's the best former player that was? I mean, look, Phil Jackson played, but was he a superstar?
Yeah, I mean, no. No, he wasn't a superstar. How about the Los Angeles Lakers? How are they doing right now with their
JJ Redick, coach? I just, and for everybody out, I just got YouTube TV. Holy hell, I am all in. That shit's amazing. Like
that's what I have.
Holy shit, dude! Like
you cut the cord.
Cut it, baby. Let's go. I'm just sick of paying for 50 different streaming services, dude. Like, let's go. I was watching 4 games last night. I don't even watch basketball like that. But I was watching 4 games. I'm like, all right, let's go. Yeah, wife Jen's like, what's going on? And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, and now you can watch whatever stupid ass reality TV show, and you can watch another one right next to it. So you know what? Let's go. I'm like, I just like
I love
shout
it.
out YouTube. YouTube TV. You should endorse this show, by the way. Yeah, help us out. We got 1 million followers. Dave's got 1 million followers. Like, shoot him some love.
Come on.
But I'm just telling you, dude, it was awesome. But like Danny Hurley.
What about him?
Played at Seton Hall.
Oh, he had to go through the whole. He was coaching at. He was coaching St. Benedict's, and he coached
St. Benedict's.
Coach with Wagner, his father first. I think.
URI, dude. He busted his ass.
Wagner, then URI.
How about this one? Look at his brother. Way better player. Duke, right? NBA. Shit happens. Where's he? Arizona State, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Look, and I got nothing for it. I'm just saying it all comes back to, and I really don't.
And they both originally coached with their father at St. Anthony's.
Which is why the hell would you not?
I mean,
shit, I'd love to sit down with that dude. And you want to talk about a disciplinarian. Like, that was one way of coaching that is no longer allowed.
Yeah, dude, they're all over. They're all over. The media is all over Dan Hurley.
Because he's what?
Because he's demonstrative. And I love the way he coaches. Like,
this is the problem, though, Dave.
I tell my son, I'm like, I got the coach for you, buddy.
We were coached like that. And if you wanted to play the sport you loved, and I think this is ultimately what it comes down to. We loved our sport more than anything in the world. A demonstrative coach might have made us dislike it a little bit, but nothing was ever going to come between that relationship of us and ball because we loved it. And I think now kids just don't love it. And it's easier to say, this coach is mean. He made me not, like whatever it is. It's a scapegoat for them rather than, I don't care how much coach gets at me.
There are coaches that are mean without the positive aspects. So this is what drives me nuts. Okay, people look
at guys that give us all a bad name.
Right? They look at Dan Hurley. Okay, Dan Hurley coaches tough. He loves up his players. He cares about his players. There are coaches though that are just dicks to their players, right? Like
100%. Don't even know their names.
Don't go over them and encourage them after and all those kind of things. Okay,
the guys that let those kids leave thinking a certain type of way, right?
You have to be able to coach them hard and then love them up, and they have to be able to understand that and you show that to them, and explain that to them. You can't just be all over them to be all over them without something redeeming to help them move on. And that's the problem with why administrators who don't know, some, not all, obviously. There are administrators that are great. But when administrators don't understand someone who's doing great, why do the players like him even though I see him yelling? Dude, that coach has a style that's going to get the most out of the players.
Absolutely.
This is the whole key is that, okay? And when you don't understand what it takes to become the best and what it takes to get something out of people, there are people that need to be motivated different ways, and you got to understand how to motivate each kid differently, right? So
Absolutely.
the thing I hate, it drives me nuts, and these are the coaches that give good coaches a bad name, and that sometimes when they see you do things, coaches who think that treating everybody exactly the same is how you should coach. No, every kid should be treated differently, meaning they should all be held to the same standards.
Yep.
Okay. But how you get them there is different. Every kid, some kids need to be, you stay on them. Some kids, you have to love them up to all the time to make sure they get there. Everybody is different. And that's
every single kid. Especially this cookie cutter way of doing things is no longer the way that you can do it. There's too many personalities. There's too many access to seeing other things that guys know. I don't think this is the right way to do it. You know what I'm saying? Or, hey, there's more self-awareness about kids know how they learn. By the time you get them in high school, dude, it's almost like, all right, well, what are we developing here? Like, this is kind of whatever. Like, and if it's doesn't come from a young age, which is where like you're at right now, like already those kids are starting to see what works for them and what doesn't. You know what I mean? Which kid do you have to constantly stay on to do the right things? Which kid do you need to love up? Which kid despises being loved up? Right? Which guy can you call out and make an example of? Which guy can you not do that to because he'll go into a shell of himself? You're basically figuring out what buttons to push for each one of your players ultimately. And if you don't do that as a coach, then I don't think you're doing your job.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. And I think that's there are people that have a ability to do that, and you have to let those coaches do what they need to do. Okay. And there's a line for everybody.
There is a line. And I think that's also the problem too, is like, you need to at least, like, you hired the guy, you know what I mean? You
tell him when you interview what you don't want.
There will be none of this. There will be none of that. Like, we
don't want this. We don't want that. Okay, you know what? That's
not my personality. Thank you. Yeah. I'm sorry I wasted your time.
Like, yeah. This is not going to fit my personality.
Or, hey, if you know what I mean? Like, and this is something that does not happen in high school football, but if you think, because obviously these things happen and whatever, I don't know, come watch me coach.
Yeah, but watching one time.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think you would have to be there every day.
That as a coach, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I've seen this. Like, I've watched a game and I've seen this guy coach. You know what I'm saying? To me, if you really want to do your due diligence,
talk to my players that have had success outside after they played for me. And find out that these lessons that they learned help them.
That's phenomenal. I might start to do that I think that should be in on your resume. References.
Yeah.
Coaching references, player references. These guys played for me. Shoot them a call.
These guys played for me. They'll tell you what it was like. Yep. And they'll tell you the truth. They'll tell you the stuff that was hard and the stuff that was great.
Look, coach made us work, but he made us better.
Yep. That's exactly it. And if that works for you, then great. If not, I mean, actually, you know what's funny? I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to put that on my resume from now on. I never thought of that until this moment, Derek. That's actually a great idea. I actually think there are guys that do that too, probably.
Absolutely. Well, look, it's the same way that we list coached first team All-State receiver, right? Or team went to the championship. Like, you're giving examples here, right? Like, but also, hey, you don't need to talk to the guy that was first team All-State that I coached. Talk to the guy right now that's a state trooper. Yep. Talk to the guy right now that's running his own business, or he's working for Merrill Lynch, or talk to this guy who's selling real estate all over the place. Talk to this guy who's a very who's a formidable DJ in the area. Like, you know what I mean? Like, shit, dude. These guys that played for us, like, yeah, did it suck? Yeah, it's football. It's supposed to suck. Was coach an asshole maybe sometimes? Yeah, but you know what? He loved me and he pushed me. Like, that's what they'll say. I needed that. I didn't know what I could do until coach pushed me to that level because he saw something in myself that I didn't see in me. And that's the same way I feel about my coaches. We just had Coach Mickens on, and kudos to him. Yesterday, he was named the Group 1 Assistant Coach of the Year.
I saw that. That's congratulations to him. He's a great coach.
40-something years of coaching, dude, right? What did he say? It's his 42nd season.
I need you to send me his number because I actually want to talk to him about I want to implement some of that stuff, the passing game into
definitely. Dude,
and I got to figure out how to, or maybe I should just talk to you about it. Because you
talk
probably
to the guru.
So but try to figure out like how to.
On that note, it's kind of funny because my head coach spoke to Dunn, and we're gonna sit down with Old Japan.
Oh, really? Oh, that's great. You should. That's the guy to sit down with you.
Klaus, I told my DC, like, this is, dude, like, we need
sit down with him.
Let's go. And so we're all going to sit down after hoop season, dude. I think it's so funny because I don't think Dunn and Klaus have put it all together yet.
What do you mean all together?
Because I don't think they know that I coach there specifically.
Oh, yeah, they may not have. Yeah, they may not have. You're right. But
because my head coach's wife went to school where up Bergen County, IHA, right, and played hoops there. Her coach and I guess Dunn are tight, so it was kind of like eye-opening moment, and it was kind of like, oh wait, like, let's get in touch. And then my DC came up to me even beforehand and was like, hey, I Googled Klaus and you came up on a podcast. I'm like, yeah, dude, like, we've talked to him a bunch of times. I said, and I've played him 1,000 times. Like, so let's figure this out. But very impressed with what they're doing. So we can implement any of that stuff.
Public school wise.
And Coach Nymphius is coming back, by the way. I don't know if he told you.
Oh, no, I know. Yeah. He told me. Because he has positions available, by the way.
So. I haven't. That's a little bit of a commute. Oh, I will give you this bit of tidbit information I found out last night, too, which is kind of unfortunate. But our boy Zoran Milic at Montgomery stepped down. He's got some medical stuff that he needs to take a year away from the game and kind of go through and take care of. So, prayers to him. He should be fine and everything, but he just needs a year away from the game to kind of set himself up. And, I talked to him directly yesterday when I saw it. But he just needs to take some time away. So he'll be stepping away for this season, dude. He's been the only coach at Montgomery history.
Oh, my God.
But he has not burned out. He made it a point to say that. I am not burned out from coaching. I just need to take care of some medical stuff. So, I know. Scary, dude. Scary.
That's crazy.
You just never know.
So what is he going to have?
Years ago, rest in peace, we had Brian Meany, right? Like, I was had just turned STA, kind of going in the right direction. We lose him to some craziness. This job is no joke, dude.
Well,
look,
coaching.
Jeff Reynos at Homedale had a heart attack in the middle of the season. Like.
Oh, so you know what I wanted to tell you? So this is totally. I have to go in a second. I just realized, but I want you to.
Are you already? Yeah, they're definitely probably yelling at you already.
It'll be low key. It's just gonna be me and Steve, which is good. Well, there was a whole. I forgot. I tried to call you the other day, but you didn't pick up.
Oh, I didn't even see it.
Really?
My fault.
I got to
because you said it earlier in the day. You're like, I gotta go. It's chaos, and you're like, I'll tell you the story. So look, I pick up your call no matter.
It was wild.
You gotta clue me in now.
Until I started running UConn shows, I honestly
now you got fireworks going.
Yeah, I never even knew any of these things. So, because I'm just not.
Just like the youth football stuff and the youth sports stuff was kind of like, okay, that's kind of over there. Now you're getting in it, dude.
I know,
and listen, we didn't even talk about.
We should almost do. We should have who's
Dave.
the guy that went Olson on, who runs his Youth Inc. thing. not Greg Olson.
Oh.
What's the oldest one? What's the one that played in the pros? Greg Olson?
Greg, the one at Miami?
Yeah, he runs like a Youth Inc. podcast. I would love to have him on with us and just talk.
Oh yeah, because he's big on some of that shit.
Yeah, just
what do
talk.
you think about how he was coached by his old man, for Christ's sakes.
You know, that
guy fought an AD, I think.
well, their middle school head coaches. He's a middle school head.
Stewart, it's him,
Jonathan Stewart,
and Keekly.
Yes. No. Yeah. Yes. It's a great staff right there.
Dude, Brian Cushing is coaching his team in Texas.
I can't imagine that team. I actually, it's funny you said that. I looked up what their middle school record was. I just figure if their 3 kids are on the team, they're probably pretty good.
Yeah, by assumption. Hey, we got 3 basically all pros here. Probably arguably one of the best linebackers.
Their kids at worst are college level players. At worst.
At worst. And we're not talking, we're not talking Montclair State here.
Depending on whether the wife enhanced the genetics or brought it down, they're either pros or
I think you're at that level, even if the wife isn't a athlete by trade. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Look, Mahomes' kids, I think, have a pretty good shot too.
Well, yeah. Well, in his case, she plays.
Now, Travis Kelce, I'll argue against because I don't know if Taylor Swift is as talented shooting basketball as she is.
No, but her father played football at Penn State. He's gigantic.
I have heard.
So she probably has the genetics.
She just decides. She's like, you know what? This is way easier to make more money.
Yeah, I'm a singer. Yeah, she is like 5'11". So.
Listen, and we didn't even touch on any of this, and I don't know if you heard the news. Jackson Liberty High School and Jackson Memorial are combining to be one.
They'll be a powerhouse. So is Mistretta stay as a head coach?
That's obviously the next. That's gonna be a whole podcast.
He will. He's
just talking about. But if not, if you go with tenure, it ain't gonna happen.
Oh, why? The other guy's been around longer.
12. I think it's 12 years to 7 years.
Oh, it's gonna be Mistretta. It's gonna be Mistretta. He's one.
They're using Jackson Liberty's going to be and listen, they're rebranding.
Oh, you're going to go to Jackson Liberty because the new
Jackson
school?
Liberty's going to be the high school. Memorial's going to be the middle school, and they're rebranding.
What do you mean?
Jackson Liberty Lions, Jackson Memorial Jaguars. It's now going to be Jackson Regional. Fill in the blank.
The Ligers. You don't used to be our joke.
Rumor mill says Renegades.
Oh, Renegades. The back in the day of Powell Park and Leonia. Leonia was the Lions, and Powell Park was the Tigers. And our internal joke was that we were the Ligers, and we used to call ourselves the Liger. But obviously we were the Ligers, and the kids used to call us LPP because but it used to be a battle because the Leonia instead of PPL because the Leonia kids had they used to say the Leonia kids had, even though we had some great players from Powell Park, Powell Park had the numbers, but Leonia had the megastars.
Very interesting.
So Leonia would be like, it's LPP. It's pretty funny. I used to laugh at all that stuff.
That stuff's comical, buddy.
It's comical. But anyway, let you run. Great show. I mean, just with us talking, it was great. So I'll give you a shout later. Hello?
We'll have our very first original guest back on the show, Liam Anderson, who at the time
I can't hear you. Oh, okay. I can't hear you for some reason.